Hello, folks. It's Anthony here. Can I get it working? All right. I'm attempting a bit of a live stream, so we'll see how it goes. There's always a risk that things will break, and that will happen. I know we've got 5 minutes here before people join, but I figured, hey, what the heck? Swamp Song's already saying, hey, what's going on? Thanks for coming out. He appreciates the Toronto AES, and I suppose some of our members do as well. We have invited some of our colleagues here for our first meeting of the year. This is the first meeting of the year, and it's very important that we kick it off with something. And we're very lucky to have a great meeting lined up. Fortunately, one person was not able to join us for the meeting, so in exchange, in lieu, I think somebody can live answer those questions, and I could probably live answer those questions. So please, if you have questions about audio-related things to the CBC, whether it's TV, radio, I'm sure I could entertain at the end a little bit and explore some of the many rabbit holes that I love exploring kind of on a daily basis. Let's take a look. All right. So, are we at 6:57? No, not quite. We got 11 people on the live stream so far, and most of our meetings we yield about 35, 45 of our diehard members. A lot of our members have been, stuck at home, unable to come out, and they've appreciated these live streams. Hello, Ross. Our vice chair, Ross Whitney, is joining us. I'm going to pin you as a moderator on the YouTube chat, just in case we get some Riley bunch here. Asking very tough. Maybe somebody will ask a video question. Shut them down, Ross. Make sure that. Oh no, I'm joking. I'm sure we could take a couple video questions if we absolutely needed to. Maybe some power questions, grounding and shielding. No, I'm joking. We already did a meeting on that. Today, we've got some of my colleagues. I was able to chat with them. I'm sorry about the audio quality between these presenters, but it was recorded in my lunch hour. Of course, I'm entirely mindful and respectful of these people's time because they're all super busy and they're all super professional. And I was lucky to catch them in some spare time, and we're lucky to have these people share some of their insights. So if anybody hasn't yet been to the website, go to torontoaes.org. All right, we got 15 people here. Clock is about to strike. You got a couple of minutes. Go to torontoaes.org. Check out some of our previous meetings. We had previously done. There's a whole bunch of bulletins. The website, indeed, goes back. Before there was internet. Some of the documentation that exists on the website goes back before there was internet. So please take a look at our website, torontoaes.org. All right, it's 7 o'clock here. I want to welcome everyone to the meeting. My name is Anthony. I'm the chair of the Toronto Audio Engineering Society. Well, the Toronto AES, welcome back. Welcome back to a new season. We have, hopefully another full year, as we always do. 10 meetings a year is kind of it's been the goal and the target and the deliverable every year, except for last year when we had a September meeting canceled because of course, this global pandemic, as we all know. The Toronto AES, we unite audio engineers socially. And Within our allied arts, we collect, and disseminate scientific knowledge that furthers all fields of audio engineering. The AES aims to empower people of all ages through participation in a healthy, safe, open community presentation. Learn about audio engineering through events like this, presentations like this, network opportunities like our meetings once were, and of course mentorship, the act of sharing what you know with somebody else, and the act of giving away your time to others so they can grow and further the community. Visit the website. We have previous meetings, Masters of Audio, our esteemed Toronto and Rochester, New York colleagues, member showcases, and a continuing tradition of, like I say, the dissemination of information. Last year was a very fruitful year for the Audio Engineering Society Toronto. We took a step through IP audio for the broadcast world, of what broadcasters were doing with work from home. We looked at COVID alternative strategies, different gadgets and gizmos, the AES microphone techniques, hearing fatigue, topics for all audio engineers. Toronto AES, the next generation, what a student night. We had a student night. Twilight Zone, doing projects in weird situations. A whole 3 hours on noise featuring some of the world's experts on grounding and shielding, and such as Bill Whitlock, Fran from Fran Labs, biggest YouTube personality we've had next to Bill Whitlock. And then, of course, we ended the year by showing a beautiful presentation by Stage Vision that kind of highlights some of the problems that we have, making production and how video is to be made slick. And tonight's meeting is no different. The CBC is no different. How to make things slick. Not that I'm delivering CBC quality programming here tonight, but let me just tell you, I'm endeavoring to. Visit our YouTube page. Swamp Songs, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for all our subscribers. We've got 200 plus subscribers now. We have had some growth in our channel because, again, our private members only meeting, members invite meetings have now gone public, and we've enjoyed sharing that. Again, the in-person meetings were never really closed doors, so we always invited people to come in and enjoy the presentations. And again, those emails, the best way to get a hold of us is the direct emails through Toronto AES at torontoaes.org. And subscribing to our mailing list as being a member of the Toronto AES section. Our executive, as the section, we work together as a team, and I use the word team to describe this because this is a group effort. Those emails that brought you here didn't generate themselves, right, Earl? Somebody took effort. It took somebody to care and push and create. We have people who look over our membership and care about diversity and care about bringing local trusted sponsors into our organization. Of course, our webmaster, our website takes a lot of effort and contribution, and we look to advisors and contributors and friends and colleagues who ultimately help us design these programs. We're constantly looking for new ideas, and at the end I'll give you an address to reach out at. The Toronto AES appreciates our continuing sponsors, right? We trust our local distributors who help us build the community that you're a part of and you're able to see tonight. Solotech, Gare Audio, Sonotechnique, Bell Media, YSL Pro, Electrosonics Canada, BRTB, Global USS Adamson, Lawo, avshop.ca, and Q5X. Some Canadian made product and Canadian distributors that have been greatly supportive of our community and growing our community. In order to grow our community needs to exist, and we exist under, I apologize, these are the old graphics. The AES has gone through a graphics change, and I'll try to endeavor to do it for the next one. So join the AES. Give the gift of a membership. If you know an audio engineer who has absolutely everything and is just bored with everything, give the gift of a membership. Bring these people into the community and let them, grow and prosper through mentorship with our colleagues. You want to be involved? You want to be part of the executive? You have to be a member. That's the only criteria. You want to host a presentation? You want to contribute a video, you want to suggest a topic, please get in touch with us. The email address is torontoaes@torontoaes.org. And there you can send us an email, send us a correspondence, send us a topic idea, etc., etc. We have academic liaisons with several schools. If you're part of a school and we don't have your contact information and you want to get your students involved, we don't have curriculum. We're not a curriculum organization. We're kind of a socializing club. So University of Toronto, Ryerson, the Harris Institute, McMaster, Eastern Sound, Rochester University, OIArt, Humber, Metalworks, McGill, Seneca, George Brown. If there's any students in the crowd of these 30 people who are watching this concurrent stream, please reach out to your professor, your student advisor for more information about the Toronto Audio Engineering Society. Tonight's presentation. All right, so tonight's presentation is about the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's role in broadcasting some elections and some Olympic stuff and a bunch of technology. Apologize. I don't mean there's like something that looks like a commercial for the CBC in here, and apologize. I do not mean for it to be. It was just the only thing that was available on the website, and I'm going to be quite honest with you. I'm allergic to video editing. It just gives me hives. I don't know what it is, but just video editing specifically just gives me hives. So I apologize if it looks like a commercial. It's just the only tour that was available on YouTube that I was able to share with the group. My name is Anthony. I'm audioaholic. It's been 48 hours since I've spent $100 on something I didn't need. So I work for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. They give me an unlimited amount of audio problems to solve, and I drink it up like it's workahol. And I'm truly privileged to be a senior systems designer at the CBC. I would argue it's a bit of a calling of mine, just considering my obsessions with all of these things. And in my last couple of years of working here with the CBC, I've met some fantastic people, and I was able to reach out and, like I said, go take them at their lunch hour at 7 in the morning and get phone calls in with them and be able to present with you, a couple presentations of them. So with that, I'm just gonna hopefully switch to a different screen. I'm gonna play a video. If my bars move, I think the audio is working. And here we go, folks. If you have any questions, like I say at the end, please reach out to me. I'm sorry if that was way too loud. I apologize. I'm so sorry. I apologize. It's terrible on audio.
CBC Studios, cutting-edge facilities in the heart of downtown Toronto. From corporate events, film and commercial shoots, to multi-camera production using control rooms, our studios are available for just about anything. Our larger studios, our most popular, range in size from 11,000 to over 13,000 square feet with a 60-foot ceiling, and come equipped with motorized grids, smooth camera-ready floors, and 360-degree black limbo curtains. Deluxe support rooms include private dressing rooms with showers, holding rooms, hair and makeup and wardrobe rooms, as well as production office space. If needed, we can also provide post-production and graphic design services, technical crews, and lighting, audio, and other equipment from our in-house technical stores. Our studios are easy to get to by cast, crew, and guests. Come in and create your own world. CBC Studios. Give us a call.
Catherine Von Bezold, how are you?
Good. How are you, Anthony?
You know, I'm excited to be back in the building with you. This is a new thing for me.
Yeah.
Catherine, what do you do here at the CBC?
So I manage people, gear, and facilities. My job at the CBC includes broadcast audio, post audio, technical stores. I've got staff and casuals, and as a senior manager, I deal with technical operations in just various ways. My job is to staff productions, train employees, hire new staff, just ensure our facilities are up to date. Working with the latest and greatest gear, which of course is constantly changing. So I also deal with purchasing. That could be like Cedar DNS8 noise reduction unit, sound miner software, for post audio, Melodyne, Isotope, Nugan plugins, chain hoist safety bags for front of house related work, loudness meters from TC Electronics, wind socks.
Right, the gambit.
Yeah, and you know, it also could be with technical stores, you know, non-audio related gear, Panasonic robotics cameras. And our audio gear actually building-wide includes 2 Calrec Apollo consoles, numerous Digico desks, SD9, S21, an SSLC 100, RTS intercom systems, Pro Tools post suites, so and just remote-related gear, field audio-related GAC.
You said tech stores. You know, that's an internal name.
Yeah.
What is tech stores, and how do productions benefit from this tech stores place?
So tech stores helps us to avoid rental costs. We still, of course, do require rental houses for particular needs, but it also goes back to when we need gear, and our staff knowing how to use that gear as well, right? To be trained. So technical stores, as you would say, is a bit of a candy shop where you've got just numerous audio, video related lighting, staging equipment available.
And this is available to the CBC Studios, CBC Productions, like.
Yeah, and of course we don't just supply equipment; we supply staff with that as well.
Staff. Yeah. So CBC is a public broadcaster. You kind of hire people and work with people who are Canada's public broadcaster. What does it mean to work for Canada's broadcaster? What does that actually mean?
It means our work can be quite varied, not only from a production standpoint, but also location. It can include shows like the Junos, Remembrance Day events, Olympics, Truth and Reconciliation Day events, federal, provincial, territorial elections. And it's our job to reflect Canada back to ourselves, to capture Canadian culture,
right,
communities, and world events as well.
Right. So does the CBC hire the events that they're not lucrative for private broadcasters, or is this is it like, are we mandated? Like how does the mandate come into play?
It not necessarily lucrative. I mean, Olympics obviously there are productions that can be very high profile and lucrative, but it also goes back to the ability to cover it, because we have to remember we're not just talking about Toronto. We're talking about
Canada,
Canada-wide, or again potential global implications as well.
So how does it work? The CBC, it's a big complicated machine. You've got multiple people coming in. I can say, how does it work? And you might give me a generic answer, but like, how does the CBC ultimately get something like the Olympics or the election? Like, is it just something that we do, or is it just
It's all magical, Anthony.
It is all magical.
What makes us different is that we are not just an empty warehouse where we add rental gear and people solely working on one assignment,
Right.
one production. So we supply staff, equipment, and experience. It requires knowledgeable, top-notch audio people, post-mixers, audio assistants. They work on shows like Fifth Estate, Marketplace, Dragon's Den, the Polaris Music Prize that just happened.
Right.
And again, you have to remember it's video forward, so it could be that when something has a preferred look, we tend to change our location to accommodate that.
Right. And there are some simulcasts, like TV, radio kind of productions that happen. Digital partners, you have a lot of digital partners now that you feed, so...
Yeah. So it's, again, I say broadcast audio, post audio, but everything kind of melds into different areas.
So you said CBC Studios. CBC Studios, it's a nationwide thing, or is it just here in Toronto?
So our department is CBC Studios in Toronto, and that's made up of facilities that include, film-sized studios, control rooms, a Remy truck, fly packs for video and audio.
Right.
And then besides audio, our staff include technical producers, project managers, switchers, camera, jib operators, video techs, again, lighting, staging, schedulers, as well as the Glenn Gould studio.
Right.
So our department handles every type of show you can think of. Again, from the broadcast side, streaming side, co-productions with CBC Music or CBC News, as well as independent shows.
And, you mentioned a lot of different people, a lot of different highly specialized skills, a lot of niche jobs. How many Steadicam operators could there possibly be in Canada, for example? When you have these highly specialized, skills, how important is it to, contract to maintain these people and to maintain, their interest in working with the CBC in the studios?
That is our number one asset, to have talented, multifaceted employees that can work on something like a recording symphony, if it's Ron Searles, mixing the federal elections for 5 or 6 hours straight, like Roberto Capretta, to working on a remote special in Kamloops for Truth and Reconciliation Day, like François Turenne, to Andrew Roberts, tying the TBC, Toronto Broadcast Center, Montreal, and Tokyo together for the Olympics.
Right.
It's Kelly Brown working with talent. It's Craig McDonald setting up front of house for our audience-based shows. We've got great audio collaborators, and they make every effort to do their jobs in the safest way possible.
So you say safety, and safe is obviously, we want to protect their hearing. That's number one. But we also want to protect them as humans. Like when you're in a studio, you have pipes and bars that could hit you in the face. But now we have this pandemic that could hit you in the face. What has it been like dealing with people in these situations during this very awkward and trying time?
Everyone has been fantastic. It takes a different set of choreography to, it's the way you approach things, it's the way you have to deal with extra setup time, it's the way you have to think of, well, maybe we don't want to send people to a location, maybe we want to do more work back here, which is what we did for Olympics.
Right.
It's acknowledging all of those things and making sure that, making sure that people can do their jobs safely, but also, it's also increased some creativity as well.
Creativity is a huge skill in solving problems.
Yeah.
The uncreative don't make it very far in the media industry. I don't know what it is. What do you look for when it comes to new skills? We're entering this IP audio. We're entering this new future. What are some of the new skills that people should be studying?
Well, yes, we're all leaning that way, and there are still standards to be set. But I've got to tell you, Anthony, at the end of the day, to me, that is all still an extension of, patching requirements, whether it's virtual or physical. And I think it's still about setting high standards for audio, whether it's recording a field audio shoot on a windy day, whether it's mixing Road to Olympic Games weekly. It's about planning, and leaving room for change as well. And if you don't know something, research and ask. There are so many people out there, subject matter experts, but also people who have an interest. Like you and I both know that, for instance, a video operator, when they go home at the end of the day, they just go home. Whereas audio people, like you,
it's an obsession.
Exactly. They love it. They want to keep growing at it. So they set the standards. It's collaborating. Do your homework. Work on innovating. I think troubleshooting also is a big part. I think, and yes, there are some areas where, in more permanent installations, that's not as required, but I will still say that's a big part of what we do, having that ability to troubleshoot.
You said teamwork, and a lot of a lot of schools, like it's a lot of independent people working at home in their Pro Tools systems. The recording industry and the audio industry is a lot of isolated people sometimes. What is it about television and teamwork that makes it just such an exciting environment to be in?
And to go by what you're saying, yes, there are people working, from home, whether we're talking CBC or elsewhere, on projects. I'll still say audio people, everyone will say their own group is a unique group, but the great thing about audio people is they do want to collaborate. They don't just, keep something to themselves. It's like, hey, have you seen this plugin? This is fantastic. Hey, have you tried this? So, I would say skills, again, it just, that ability to, it goes back to what does it sound like? You can talk the talk, but you've got to put your fingers on the faders and mix, whether they're virtual or not.
This is very true. This is very true. You touched on some diversity and inclusion of accepting ideas and listening and again, the CBC we're mandated. We have hiring practices. What has changed in our staffing in regards to diversity and inclusion in the last little while here?
I think we're doing. I'd say we've accelerated having that ability to have different voices at the CBC. Everyone brings something unique, and that's not just in technical skills, but in your background. You could be working on something for post audio, and maybe it's a documentary where something is brought forward with another language in mind for someone who has that background. That's great.
Yeah.
Different cultures. So I think it goes back to reflecting Canadian society. I'm from Toronto. I grew up very much in a multicultural environment, and I love the fact that we want to promote that and promote staff as well. So it's about making it as inclusive as possible.
That's very good. So what advice would you give somebody, who's new to the Toronto AES, who's looking to get into, the field of media productions? It's not a one-trick, television is not a one-trick kind of thing. You said it's about a variety of skill sets. So how does somebody collect this skill set who dreams of one day working at the CBC? So
that's a 50-50 proposition, because there will be people that say, well, how am I supposed to get the experience if I don't do the work?
Yeah.
But in this day and age, I think you can do a lot of work on your own. You've got people that you can go to, whether it's within AES or elsewhere, to say, hey, I've just recorded this, this music. How does it sound? Hey, I've, helped someone out on their film shoot. How does this sound? Experimenting, trying different things. Again, audio people live and breathe audio. It's not just for work. It's who they are.
Yeah, it's a 24-hour gig.
I think so.
I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it is. Catherine, thank you so very much for your time.
CBC Studios, cutting edge facilities in the heart of downtown Toronto. From corporate events, film and commercial shoots, to multi-camera production using control rooms, our studios are available for just about anything. Our larger studios, our most popular, range in size from 11,000 to over 13,000 square feet.
I don't mean to play this twice, but I can talk over it, right? I have that capability. So up on the roof, up on top of the CBC, why did they put studios up at the top? Well, they put studios up at the top so they could be completely pillarless. So if you go into the inside of a studio, there are no pillars inside of that studio, right? So by being on the 10th floor, all of the studio space could have these big, huge vaulted ceilings. Up top here, these are what they call battens, and they can be dropped in and dropped out for different lights. Sometimes speakers get flown on them. Different microphones go up and down on them. Various lights, various different fixtures, like they come in, they go out. One of the things is the floor. It's completely smooth, so it's like a camera-ready floor, so you can dolly almost anywhere across the floor. Let me just see if there's other pictures of this stuff. So some of the big rooms, they put floor down to give it some sheen, and there's some big productions that come through here. They're talking about how they have support facilities. So of course, like, you can't just dress these people. They have to hang out someplace, and to have these are just hangout places for 65 people or 70 people to come around and have lunch or something like that. Hair and makeup. Part of the facility is there's some productions come in and they need production desks and telephone lines, and they sit down and they accommodate it. This is I think this is the 8th floor, like a EVS capture room. A lot of communication panels everywhere, metering, monitor, signals coming through. Post-production, there's post-production facilities on board. Staging, a lot of staging equipment comes in and out. Full lighting in-house, rental department, all of that stuff. This is SSL mixing console, full audio mixing. Here's some pictures of tech stores. Tech stores is, this is old tech stores, but, big meat racks full of lights. Just take whatever you need. The Glenn Gould is still one of our crown jewels. This is still a lovely, amazing concert hall. One day, hopefully, we will be able to all have a meeting there. We should be able to, come in, maybe do a facility tour. Again, the CBC. I don't want to do the rentals thing, because that's not what this is about. But I wish you could all join us. There's another little tour video coming up, and a couple of great conversations with some lovely colleagues of mine. Here we go. Watch your ears.
Daniel, I think it's recording. Do I got you there?
I got you here.
All right. Okay. All right. It's cleared my screen. How are you, Daniel Pereira? What's going on in your world right now?
Well, I'm doing all right. I'm in the middle of moving, so hopefully I don't sound too much like I'm sitting in an empty room, but that is in fact where I am.
No, you've always had the best audio when we've ever chatted on this thing. So kudos to you. Are you using it?
Say yes. I got to make an effort.
Yeah. So are you using anything special to have this phone call? What are you using today?
Just for funsies, because I was testing it for work. I have a emerging Anubis AES67 Ravenna audio interface, and I'm using a Sennheiser HMD 27 headset.
There you go.
To try and mask my empty room.
So I've got a Wardbeck Primo on my end, because that's what I have at home. I'm just at home. I do also have a similar Anubis here. And have you got a gateway? You got a connection back to the connection back to the station there?
At the moment, no. Like, it's really simple. I've just got the interface plugged directly into a laptop, just using a straight Ethernet cable.
There you
In
go.
this particular application, it is adding no value compared to just a normal USB device. I got to be honest, but I'm playing around with it, so
you're a technical producer. Is that your role at the CBC? Is that your previous role now that you're moving, or before you're moving?
Yeah, I'm kind of transitioning into a different job, but that was my previous role for the past couple of years. Yeah.
And what? Technical producer. Walk us through like a job description of what a technical producer could do.
So the basic idea is that at CBC we have a department that provides production services to different shows, so to sports, to news, to factual entertainment, communications, all the various departments at the CBC, to kids, and we have studios, and we have crews, and we have equipment, and the technical producer's job, along with usually a production manager, is to work with the client to figure out how it is we're going to produce the thing that they want to do. And as a TP specifically, I figure out crewing and how we're going to make something happen technically. And I work very closely with lead members of my various crews, and yeah.
So you are you guiding their technical? Are you drawing stuff? Are you providing them technical leads? Or are you how are you bending the production technically? Like you say, you're providing equipment, you're providing connectivity. What kind of stuff do you provide? Let's say we were talking specifically about the Olympics. Like what type of stuff would you be needing to be providing these productions?
Yeah, so the Olympics is like a particularly massive thing, and I was only a small part of the machine there. But it starts planned months and years out in advance. But basically, it starts with schedules and facilities, and what studios are we using, what crew is going where, who's back at home in Toronto, who's traveling to the venue. Of course, COVID kind of changed that. And once we get like kind of a basic framework going on, we do get into the details of what technology we're using and how we're sending signals and all of that stuff. And again, I'm working with a large team of people. We have various crew leads. We work with installers, with various vendors. We work with our engineering department internally. And yeah, it's a big team to get it done.
Those big systems, like you say, it's teamwork to get these things done. There's a lot of handing off one thing to another, thing when it comes to making these large productions work. So how would you describe, like just for, teach me like I'm 5. There's an Olympic sport happening in a whole different country across a big ocean, and it's connected. How does the CBC get one of those cameras and one of those feeds back to Toronto for production's use and consumption?
So the way signals flow during an Olympics is that CBC purchases a couple of high bandwidth fiber optic connections between the host broadcast location, the building in Toronto and the building in Montreal, and then we use an IP transmission platform. Specifically, it's equipment provided by Nevian, and all of our video signals, which come in and come out as SDI with 16 channels of embedded audio, are encoded as JPEG 2000. And then we have some audio-only connections, which say as full kind of uncompressed PCM, just kind of wrapped in IP, and they enter and exit as MADI on both ends. So that's the basic framework for transmission.
It's almost like it looks like SDI on one end and it looks like SDI on the other, but there's just a mammoth amount of stuff in between that you don't see.
Yeah, a big network. And all of its components, lots of fiber optics, and yeah, encoding, decoding equipment. But yes, to the end user, it's signal in on one end, signal out on the other.
So once it hits the building, like it has to be timed or aligned. Are there frame synchronizers at all of the front ends to ensure alignment with these MADI signals? How do we ensure that this large group of video signals is indeed coordinated and synchronized with that large group of MADI signals right beside it?
Yeah, it all gets resynced upon entry. So like all the video signals hit frame synchronizers, and all the audio signals are resynchronized as well, all to the same house clock.
So in that bundle, yeah, they're just aligned to the house clock. All the frames are matched. Do you do sync tests from venues beforehand, or is this something you do as like a global setting because they're like trunks? Well, you do it once and you leave it be for the whole time.
Well, for the host broadcast feeds, which are produced by OBS on the Olympics, they put up a sync test tone and test picture where you can see whether your audio is in time, whether it matches a little frame hit on the video. Mm-hmm. And then for all of our other signals, yeah, we do sync and level tests. We have somebody stand on the remote end and we talk to them and we do kind of a visual sync test.
Clap check. You guys, is the clap the interest? It's still industry standard, right?
It is, and some of my colleagues in audio have an amazing ability to spot one or two frames. I can't say that I can, but
I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is, but so. When you deal with a video and audio signal, sometimes you're dealing with communication paths that are moving back and forth through those tunnels based on schedules. Who coordinates those communication paths? And you say like a lot of this is schedule driven, months and years in advance. How do those schedules determine the roles of what people do in events such as this?
Yeah, scheduling is a huge component of an Olympics. Of course, OBS has their schedule of which events and which feeds they're putting on which transmission paths. So we call those multi feeds because they serve multiple broadcasters, and then we have unilateral feeds or unis, which are our unique cameras or positions at venue. And when we get a schedule from OBS. We map out kind of people at CBC SRC map out which path it's going to take. And then CBC and SRC, like for different sporting events, also often we voice our own commentary for various games. So there's always a schedule of, which commentary source is going to broadcast, which one is going to digital for both CBC and SRC. It's a massive document that we deal with daily.
And these, you say massive document, and really like this is a living document, like a Google document, or is
we use Google Sheets. It's amazing the things that we use Google Sheets for.
Okay, so tell me, like how does that affect you? Like, is it a real time, like you're programming equipment off of it, or is it you're programming people and tasks with these living Google Sheets?
Well, we kind of have to build our infrastructure in advance of the games. We kind of know the requirement, how many voiceover booths, how many events we're going to be taking in, basically what the overview kind of requirements are, and we build to that. But then day to day, it's lots of human stuff going on. It's lots of coordination. It's making sure the right people go to the right booth. Check their microphone, that we're not only hearing them, on the intercom and on the MADI, but we're also hearing them embedded with the game feed. It's all sorts of stuff like that.
No, it's like you say, it's the embedded stuff. It's the make sure that they're at the right place at the right time, and you're not crossing paths and literally everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, with broadcast audio, embedding is always a big thing, right? Most audio signals have a picture associated with them.
Right.
And they travel together.
Right. And what complexities are now brought up with that human aspect of the communication? Because you have this huge, gap between
where you are, geographical gap. What does that do to like real-time communications with people, or is that reduced now because it's you're more dependent on the feeds that come?
The real-time nature of communications is amazing, because these fiber paths are dedicated to CBC and SRC. The round trip delay, sending an audio signal, whether that's one for on air or whether it's an intercom signal or a communication signal, the round trip delay of sending that from Toronto to, in this case, Tokyo and back again. When you listen to source and round trip, it's amazing how quick it actually is. So we're able to have real-time conversations with people all over the world at this point.
And it doesn't feel unnatural like one would expect it to be, or it just feels like a natural conversation, or like the kind of Zoom connectivity that we've become accustomed to.
It feels pretty natural. I mean, there are some systems we use that do impose a delay. Stuff that's not tied to as big infrastructure. Kind of transmitters in the field that you're using cellular data and stuff like that. That starts to introduce a delay that makes the conversation feel less natural, but for the dedicated fiber path, like big build stuff, no, it's a very natural kind of communication experience.
In the past, you've done a couple elections. I don't think you were working this election. You had other commitments.
Yeah, I've worked a few.
The challenge of the CBC for Olympic or for elections is those remote paths, right? Multiple people in multiple different places. What type of technology do we employ to make those paths work for those remote locations? Let's just talk specifically in Canada. Tokyo's the extreme example. What's it like in Canada when we do in elections like this?
Yeah, so actually similar to what we do for an Olympics, we have a whole separate control room that just works on remotes. And a team of people, all they do is check and make sure all those connections are in place and that everything is faxed out and checked and ready for air before it even goes to the main control room. It's quite a machine we build. But in terms of the tech behind the scenes, wow, where to start? So I'll start with the kind of bigger picture signals in the building. In the building are still to this day our kind of standard for sharing signals between control rooms and studios is MADI. So we have a big MADI router, and we're able to send all sorts of audio signals or intercom signals from room to room or place to place within the Toronto building. So that kind of enables the workflow of 2 separate control rooms or 3 separate control rooms or whatever, all tied together. In more recent years, we've been starting to use a little bit of Dante audio over IP as well, predominantly for the intercom side, but for production audio as well. And those 2 tools, I'll add a third tool, a couple of our or a third signal transport. A couple of our TV production control rooms have CalRec audio consoles, and they have a CalRec kind of interconnect called Hydra, which allows the consoles to share signals. So using those 3, high channel count digital signal transports, and converting between all 3 of those signal transports, we're able to get signals from anywhere to anywhere within our building. So that covers the within the building part. Do you want to talk about remotes?
Yeah, and so if a remote, how many remotes can the CBC handle? Like not to talk about the scale of the building, but like including news, like the remote router, like there are hundreds of remotes that drop at the CBC building in Toronto, or is it? Yeah,
we have all sorts of ways to receive remote signals for television. So I haven't actually counted recently, but it's got to be in the hundreds. We have different satellite and fiber decoders. We have an internal transmission platform to get things from different CBC buildings and stations across the country. We have different IP encoders in the field. A lot of them nowadays use cellular.
Right, like
internet connections. We got DeGero, we got Live View, things like that. Yeah, so they're encoders that we plug cameras into, or there's also apps that people can use on kind of off the shelf consumer devices as well. So yeah, hundreds for sure.
One of the things we talked about early when we did we talked early at the AES, maybe it was even last year. One of the first jobs you and I did together was like FaceTime, like a Skype. What has changed in terms of and the Olympics added it too? I imagine there were some Zoom, and what does it take now to connect? Not the professional connection, but what does it now look like to connect the consumer, who isn't got a professional thing? What does that look like to connect to the building's infrastructure now?
That's a human problem, not a not a technology problem most of the time.
Oh yeah.
We have a couple of folks, resources coordinators, who are really talented at they understand those platforms really well, and can talk people through. They could talk your great grandmother through getting the best possible setup. So it's about taking the time and walking people through that to get the best result. But a little bit of a tangent there. It's amazing, the time that we're in with the pandemic, people's setups and awareness of how to do a high quality video and audio call. It's amazing. In fact, my mother-in-law, who does a lot of meetings in her office now, she has like 1x1 LED panels that are color, temperature, and intensity adjustable. And she's got a good quality, external USB microphone and the whole thing. It's
perfect.
And I think that's not a unique thing. So I think your average consumer is becoming much more aware of how to deliver a high quality audio video signal.
This is true. Well, I say that while listening to your radio quality AS67 transported audio there, Daniel. So like it's
just your average consumer over here.
Hey, how about it, Long McQuaid? Come on, it's just whatever.
Whatever.
For me, it's it's very much the consumer has gotten much smarter at that thing. But you're right about the coaching. Like, it's easier to coach someone through a Zoom call because they've probably had a Zoom call in their life at some point in time.
Yeah, it's like we've years ago in news we did a lot of Skype, and we've really moved away from Skype because people understand Zoom and are using Zoom, and they understand and use FaceTime, particularly if they have, obviously only if they have Apple devices.
Right.
So those tend to be the platforms that we use to connect with people. Our live view decoders, there's an app that you can put on an iOS device. Way better audio and picture quality than anything you'll ever do on Zoom or FaceTime. But the amount of effort it takes to talk somebody through setting that up compared to using the tool that they're already familiar with. That's kind of where you make your decision.
So we
use a lot of Zoom these days.
Yeah,
a lot of Zoom. Broadcast.
Side channels. Like, here, if I had an IFB, I'd be, talking to you down a side channel. Has Zoom improved anything on these side channels, or how do you have these side conversations with people to give them cues when they're, in a Zoom call?
Yeah, so the way we integrate the computers that we use for broadcast calls is that we actually feed them the audio input to the Zoom call or the FaceTime call or the Skype call or whatever is an IFB. It's interruptible foldback that's generated in our intercom system. So producers or anybody in the control room is able to, just push a button and speak directly to that person or to any one of, several people if we've got several computers running.
I gotcha. So their Zoom call just shows up as a key on the intercom, and they just talk to it like they would any other remote. Yeah,
in front of the producer, you put 6 buttons that say Mac 1 through Mac 6, and they just push the right one and talk to the right person and listen as well.
Yes,
and that's a big part of broadcast audio is intercom. You're always having to communicate with people. So that's we may send more signals, to make intercom work than we actually do to make production work.
Right.
Actually, we probably do.
Yes. So
it's an order of magnitude more signals.
So and that's the back conversations, the producer to director to camera to all those kind of conversations that are happening. Yeah. That magnitude is different.
So not only does the person behind the audio console have to be able to listen to all of the things coming in, but all sorts of other people around the building have that capability as well.
That's a big part of what we deliver. So during the election, they had people throughout the building. They had, people, producers working on stuff. With COVID, how has that type of, intercom connectivity changed throughout the building? You as a technical producer, have you, during the Olympics, producing at Olympics during COVID must have, created some unique scenarios in terms of people and in terms of people in the building. What are some of the challenges you've run into recently that are related to keeping people safe while they're able to perform their tasks throughout these productions that happen?
So we have deployed a variety of systems to stream audio and video feeds to people working at home. In as close to real time as we can. Obviously, there's some delay so that people can see and hear what they're working on. And we've also deployed, intercom apps that people can use at home. So those have been two huge tools. And then aside from that, sometimes we just have to have people in the building. And so what we're doing is productions are taking up more real estate than they ever did before. They're starting to grow. We're starting to, build out workspaces on big empty studio floors and things like that.
Right. Just to accommodate the people that are needed to produce the positions. Yeah.
Yeah, or we outboard certain positions to adjacent offices, things like that. Yeah.
When the Olympics was over and the Paralympics started, were the feeds any different? How did the infrastructure, my recollection, you were in 43 for Paralympics. Were you part of that production as well?
Yeah. I was the TP on Paris.
So how did that transition look, and was it, is it any different than just like changing over one feed to another? What did that look like?
Well, a lot of work went into designing and building things for the Olympics. So we tried to leverage as much of, what was already set up as possible. But, it was much smaller in scale. It was only one control room, only one studio floor. We only had a couple of crews out in the field. The setup that we have, the workspace that CBC SRC has in the IBC over in Tokyo was completely dismantled. And a fraction of the people were over there, so it was way smaller in scale. But in terms of feeds, we no longer had that really high bandwidth fiber network I was talking about, but we still did take all our feeds in an IP. So during the Olympics, we get a backup copy of our signals, like a compressed H.264 video with 8 channels of audio feed from OBS via NBC in Stamford, Connecticut. And then over to us in Toronto and in Montreal, where we're able to decode it. And there's, the quality of the signal is very high, but not quite as good as our main path. And there's also a little bit more delay on it. So that secondary path became our primary path for Paralympics. Yeah. The other thing is we don't, for Paralympics, there isn't the budget to hire commentators to create a CBC version of the commentary, the unique Canadian perspective. So we were taking OBS's commentary that they produce. So that's why if you watch Paralympics, you heard a lot of, Australian accents and stuff like that.
No, BC3.
Not Canadians.
that was the first time I ever saw BC3 as a sport, and I was like, wow, that's a very interesting Paralympic sport. That to me is like. So I watched, I think, like 6 or 7 hours of that. So it was great. It was absolutely great.
Yeah. The other thing on Paralympics is we don't have as much, Tokyo is plus 13 hours, I think.
Okay.
Plus or minus. I think it was plus. Yeah. So, for the Olympics, we did a lot of late and overnight coverage. For Paralympics, it was mostly daytime and evening programming. So we were also time shifting a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
There was really nothing live. So we had a team of people in overnight kind of trapping and shot listing and organizing material, and then a lot of what we actually broadcast was kind of assembled on a delay.
So when you're trapping and organizing material, are these clips being recorded into like a airspeed or into like a EVS, or how do these clips get captured for the post-production process to make any sense of them?
Yeah, they both tools are used actually. So we have Avid Air Speeds that record directly into our Interplay shared storage system for all of our Avid Edit suites, and also we have EVS servers as well. So we're trapping on both. But that's the workflow. I mean, you have teams of people. It's no longer acceptable, to record to a tape or a card or whatever, and have one person traffic that content. It hasn't been for a long time. We have to collaborate, and many people need to work together. So we use these shared storage systems and shared editing systems to produce all of our content. So that might look, person might feed in, a few minutes after they're feeding in, somebody might be looking through it to shot list it, maybe add some closed captions, maybe mark, kind of the best take, whatever the case may be. So that might be a media librarian or, associate producer. And then later in the day, a producer or an editor might need to go and access that same material and information. So it's a very kind of collaborative environment, all enabled by servers and shared storage.
That's a huge, yeah. How, like you said, you use Google. I imagine some of these workflows relied on Google Drive to move things between people at home. What other, you said there were sharing points. There's Avid. There's a whole bunch of post-production, audio post-production. Since this is an AES thing, I don't know if we will.
I talk a lot of pictures, don't I?
No, that's why I got you in, because the signal flow, it's always married to the picture. We got to remember that, the audio is in parallel to this because that's the reason for it. It's got to be. That's also part of the challenge of being in audio, is making sure it's in sync. What did the post-production look like? Because like you say, not a lot of this stuff was aired live, and we also have a lot of digital stakeholders now where we can better serve viewers. What did that look like after it was, and you used the word trapped instead of taped, which I love. What does that paradigm shift look like now that we're pushing towards the digital platforms in parallel to the television and radios?
Yeah. So what OBS, Olympic Broadcasting Services, I think, what they send us, I wouldn't describe it anything they send us as a mix. I would more call it stems. So we get multiple channels from them. We call it IS, or International Sound, which is kind of the sound from the venue, and then the commentary, or the two major stems. And when we're going out to broadcast, we deliver a 5-1 mix. We're not getting any reverse surround content from them, so we kind of sneak a little bit of IS into the rears as well, and use some other tricks like that. So we're making a 5-1 mix. 5.1 is our deliverable for broadcast. Digital, so streaming on the web or streaming on your Apple TV or whatever. The deliverable is stereo. So for broadcast, we have, mixers, people sitting at audio consoles who can in real time listen and adjust, mix. For digital, we might be sending out a dozen different streams at a time. And obviously we can't have one person per stream sitting and mixing it in real time. So what we do is we use an audio processor that takes the different channels from OBS and creates a mix. And what we do is we, after listening to what they're sending us, we make kind of a judgment on what the levels should be. So I think we were padding IS down by -6 dB and mixing it in with commentary. And then, we bounce through and we listen as the games go on, and we tweak that value as needed. And unfortunately, that means that because there's nobody mixing in real time for digital, the quality isn't quite as good. But it's reasonable.
Let's back that up.
It's definitely as I'm flipping through the streams at home, kind of those settings that we punch in are delivering a signal where you can clearly hear the commentary over the event.
Yeah.
And you can hear the sound from the swimming pool or the whatever at a reasonable level.
So let me back that up. That's great. So the digital feeds that are happening in parallel with all of these events, they are mixed to air, or are those were the live direct feeds that were feeding our digital platform? I just wanted to understand that.
So in digital, everything goes out in real time. Like
Okay.
we don't time shift it. In broadcast, so in the case of the audio map and mix for digital, that's happening in real time.
Okay.
In the case of the mix for broadcast, for Paralympics at least, that was happening after the fact. So many hours later, that event with multiple embedded channels of audio was rolling back, and somebody was mixing it in real time.
Wow, just so much complexity, Daniel. Daniel, look, thank you for your time. Thank you for even just trying to unravel this audio onion. I appreciate your time.
Yes, unravel the onion, untangle the spaghetti. That's what it's all about.
That is good luck in your next assignment, and hopefully we'll be able to check in with you soon. Dana Mackay. Hello, have I got you there? Are we on the air? Hello, good to see you.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
are.
Thank you for Dana. Dana, what is your role at the CBC? What do you do at the CBC?
So here at the CBC, I'm the Director of Infrastructure Support, Toronto. I lead the team. One of the roles I have is to lead the team that helps design and configure and install for the Olympic Games for both in host country, Toronto and Montreal.
So coordinating infrastructure, coordinating technology, coordinating people. A lot of people you coordinate. What sort of in the organization? There's operators, there's engineers, and there's the group in between that are like technicians and technologists. Is that the group of people that you coordinate and manage?
Yeah, the technologists and senior analysts. So I manage the group responsible for the broadcast equipment and distribution, and the group responsible for all of the network infrastructure.
The network infrastructure. So telco as well as all the network that connects the rooms, connects the campus and campus as well, campus maintenance.
Yep, all of that, and post and production. So studios and edit suites and infrastructure as a whole.
So right now we've had a couple of productions through. We've had the elections come through, and we had the Olympics come through, and your team was working to prepare for Tokyo 2020, and it got canceled. What was that like for your team? What did that do for your team and their morale? What happened?
We didn't have time to get deflated. I will tell you that. We turned on a dime, and we worked hard to come up with new solutions. We've got very creative with technologies around working from home. We duplicated a lot of facilities in an effort to keep social distancing. We achieved a lot. There was some frustrations with timing and this short window of opportunity we had to execute this. But all in all, it was successful, and in the end, it felt like a great achievement for the whole group.
With that, the turning on the dime is based on, it's not something that a little bit of planning is results in. It's something that is big planning. What are some of the steps that go through in producing big events like this with your teams? Who are your clients, and how do they ultimately come to you at the building to take these technical ideas and kind of turn them into like a real actual show?
Yeah, so I've been embedded with the sports and production teams for a few years now, planning for the Tokyo Games a few different ways at this point. And we meet on a regular basis. The editorial sports team really comes up with the look and feel of the show. The technical producers really try and achieve, the execution of that technology. And they come to us and they say, here's what we need. Here's what we're missing. And we go out there and achieve those solutions through, great ideas, great technologies, time, initiative, communication. Our teams work very closely together in an effort to make sure that we're not duplicating things in different ways. You know how you can achieve things in many different ways, but are any of them smart? And do we have to do it a million different ways? So we try and make sure we stay common in our workflows amongst all of the teams and in Montreal and Toronto.
You have a lot of creative people that work for you, a lot of people who, have, the capability to solve technical problems. Like you say, what do you do to, I guess, wrangle those people into, having the like a common idea or a common technology that brings them together? What challenges happen there?
So we, funny you asked that. We just had an after action review for the Tokyo Games amongst our teams, and there's a few challenges that we saw. One of which was simple meeting minutes. It was not something I was great at, and so I've brought someone in to help manage those. And meeting minutes help to keep people in line with, well, somebody had that great idea, and I think we agreed on this already, haven't we? And that record of decision making and the just really letting people speak their minds, giving them a platform amongst their colleagues. Often I have to draw some of the shy people out and say, I'm sure you've got a little pebble of wisdom here that you can provide, knowing their background, and letting people really shine. And I think that was achieved really well during these games. There was no time for any arrogance or any bulldozing in these games. You needed everyone's insight and hands to make this happen in such a short time.
Television, you use some strong words there, Dana. Television has like a reputation of being kind of it's a toxic environment when it really push comes to shove, because you got to get on the air. Because of work from home and because of all the COVID protocols and because of all that stuff, were people more willing? Was there a different attitude of this because people were just like in this accommodating mode? What was different about these Olympics? Because, like you say, there's no opportunity, there's no moment, there's nothing. You just had to deliver. And with this reduced time, like you said, it got canceled, but then we're back on the air. We got to get this done in less time. Well, yeah. How is the attitude and personalities different, especially from a director's point of view?
So I would say one of the great things, this is the first time that the infrastructure support team has really led the initiative at a technical level. We used to take leadership from within the engineering department. And this time around, we really owned what we were going to support. And that was a big advantage to people's morale. In regard to the short work time and the COVID, impacting us being able to get in a room and whiteboard ideas and stuff, I think the pandemic really drew people together. It gave people a sense of camaraderie, a sense of, I would hate to say we compare it to a war, but that idea of we're all in it together and we're moving forward.
Yes.
And it really showed amongst the teams, really, really highlighted during the pandemic for sure.
Well, it's a canoe. We're all in the same canoe, and
better example. Yeah.
By tying these systems together, and everybody working in unison, there was a huge, from some of the other people I've talked to. I talked to Daniel Pereira and I talked to Roberto. They talked about this. We're experiencing this fourth dimensional problem of time now, because for the Olympics you're not producing one show at a time or one flow at a time. You're producing multiple streams at a time. And then you're delaying those things and you're shifting those things. What has working in that fourth dimension and with multiple streams coming in, what does that do to your organization? What does that do to the technology you support?
It's designed that way. I don't think we see it adds complexity for sure, and it adds a level of difficulty with tracking what each technical workflow is supposed to be achieving. But I think from the perspective of, when you talk about multiple streams, there's multiple audio streams, and who are we servicing with which stream? Because we put all of our audio on one video path and distribute to partners, digital, Toronto English services, and Montreal French services. So it's a lot of unpacking from an audio perspective. And then from an actual video streaming to content to our partners and our vendors and our audience, it's there's a lot of coordination and the last minute changes that our presentation teams have to jump through and achieve, and take direction from editorial for decisions of what we're going to drop because this gold medal show has gone over or something like that. But it puts a load on our systems. And what it definitely does is, we have to do a lot of preventative maintenance before the games to ensure our systems stay up. And then there's a mad rush right after the games to redo all those preventative maintenance for our day-to-day use of equipment. So those, that time period, we were frozen in time with our regular preventative maintenance efforts. And that sometimes with some of our systems is fingers crossed, we should be able to make a 3-week period without having to, reset or do something like that. Yeah.
And some people, they don't understand that some of these systems are running for 7 or 8 years without being shut off, and resetting some of these things is a rare occurrence. So, it's part of maintenance. Is how many of your technical problems are solved by somebody unplugging something and plugging it in?
I hate to admit it, but yes.
It's every day. It's every day. This is it.
Yeah.
We don't talk much about radio, and I mainly hang out with TV folk just because they're the most demanding. What does radio do to during the Olympics? How did they get serviced, and how were they doing? What was the radio impact of the Olympics?
So radio does it sounds small potatoes, but they do a 5-minute show every hour, kind of capping the last hour of sports in Japan. But that, involves, they use like Comrex distribution, and they had a voiceover booth up in the studios as well and it was a great setup. They could just walk in, put on a pair of headphones, and they're talking to someone in Japan and doing interviews. And so they've really learned to integrate more. We found a way to integrate them more into the television infrastructure instead of having their own setup, or we're repeating things, back to that, like smart decisions and common workflows. So we have our collection department collects stuff, and people can just pull from our Avid system and get the audio tracks, and then they're ready for broadcast in radio. So there's some really smart workflows that achieve the work that radio needs without duplication of effort.
It's a bit of a yin yang. You have people there, the infrastructure's there. What's another audio line? We got 1,000 of these things coming here. Right?
Yeah, audio is always the trickiest, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
After action review, it was all about audio.
Well, and that's this, to me, that just sounds like job security as an engineer. I'm not going to lie. But why is that? Why is audio, again, it's the communication path before action actually happens. Like, why is the audio the trickiest part of some of these things? And yeah, what are the challenges that happen with this communication system that exists on a network in parallel to all of these things?
I think the biggest challenge with audio is we can put so much, right? You can put so much on one, like MADI source and a Dante circuit, and that just leaves the open to possibilities. And we put a lot of audio coming back from Tokyo, and that has to be demuxed, remapped for some of our distribution. So it's really about who needs what audio, where in our signal path. That breakout point is the biggest. It's the distribution of all the audio that's the challenge. It's not collecting it and transmitting it on that signal path. It's breaking it out for those who need it in the right places.
Once it's out of the building, for you, you're end to end. You cover from glass to presentation, and presentation is again a scheduled thing. You then hand it off to different organizations. There's the digital feed and there's the over the air, and we've got CBC Gem, and we've got partners during the Olympics. How do all of these subscribers of the feeds, are they all the same? Are they all different? Like, what happens to those signals once they leave the building?
So the audio, the way we deliver it coming out of presentation is what the audience is able to receive. I think we've created a stereo pair and a 5.1, and that's what people can collect from their set-top box or the over-the-air, depending on their display model. And then same with at the digital, the GEM, the web streaming platforms. It's as we distribute it from the building. There's some, processing that's done with the audio to ensure we're staying within range, and there's no clipping and that kind of stuff. But it's as we've created it that we distribute it.
So with that, What new technologies is the CBC exploring to change that type of distribution model? Like right now, you've mentioned a lot of MADI workflows, and in the building, it's a lot of SDI workflows. Is Toronto looking towards IP technology? You know, with this Olympics, you did connect with Montreal and their all new IP facility. What are you know, now that you're in that kind of cusping of technology, what are some of the things that we can expect to see in you know, in this new transition towards IP technology?
Yeah, well, we're putting a lot of effort, as I said. You know, as one of my roles with the Olympic Games is technological decision of purchases, and I always look to make sure we're future proofing ourselves with the IP infrastructure coming along. Sometimes there's an easy solution that I could make with a simple purchase of technology, but that technology is not bringing us to the future. So we incorporate the future into the designs we make today. IP, you know, the remote audio consoles, that's a big part of what we did this last game. Was the audio for English services was actually controlled back here in Canada. The venues were controlled in Canada using, you know, remote technology, and the introduction of IP increases our options,
right,
as far as you know, consoles and just different ways to distribute it. There's just so many options; it's endless.
One of the hardest things I've found as an engineer, and maybe we'll take this one offline, but patch bay labels. Let me just tell you, there are maybe tens of thousands of patch bay labels at the CBC, maybe tens of thousands. How do we coordinate that? How does that magic happen? And how do those things get used as like an instrument in the CBC to program within the building?
So our colleagues in the engineering department, you know, they have to kind of create those labels and those the labels, for lack of a better word. And those are really, like, those things can't slide around in those little displays because they're vital for, during the Olympics, we patch so many things throughout our CER for a temporary workflow. And it's detriment that the labeling's been done correctly for this to really work. It's how we actually wire the Olympics.
And it's temporary, right? Like you said, these things are like so on a normal day, you know, these systems do not behave like this. But is it overnight, or is it over a period of 3 weeks that they get transformed into this Olympic mutation of what the CBC can be?
Yeah, so we generally start, you know, some of the temporary in-floor wiring gets started about 3 weeks, a month before that we can get installed. But the overpatching into our routers and our monitors and stuff, that happens within, I would say, 2 to 3 days of the games. I shouldn't say of the games, of our dry runs, which is about 4 days before the games start.
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot of overpatching, especially on our router. You know, we're still working on an older SDI router, and we've had it's at capacity. So we spend a lot of time. What are the requirements coming back from the venues and the host country, and what are the needs within the building, and with our partners, what do they need from our router? And then we identify the things that won't be used during the Olympics that we can afford to overpatch for the period of the Olympics. So it is a huge partnership with all of our media lines to find enough resources to make the games work. It got tight this time, I'll tell you that. It was close.
Well, like you say, it's sharing. It's a team game and a team sport. So it's about sharing those resources. I'm sorry, you said it got close. It got close. It got close.
You know, Rogers hockey coming out of our building. That's one of the things we have to wait for. They sit on our router, so we have to wait for them to be done their production to be able to start planning the overpatching of the sources they have during
Right.
normal season. And then we take them for the period of the games. Winter games are even more challenging if hockey is still running. So it gets down to the wire when we can take those sources and start testing things for sure.
We had an election. Again, instant flip. We, here you're done the Olympics. Hey, we got an election. And then, hey, there's another Olympics this fiscal, I like to say. So very challenging to flip these things over. Again, when events like that happen, how quickly does the building turn around to do that same type of thing? It's like a daily flip over?
We had to have the first flip. We had to have the control room that was being used for collection and QC for the Olympics. We had to flip that back around to be used for the road to the Olympic Games within 4 days, which was no small feat. We had production load in for Family Feud in one of the other control rooms in studio floor. And that, I think it started within 2 weeks of the end of the games.
Oh, yeah.
So it's phenomenal how quickly we have to turn things over. And then there was the elections on top of it all, right? Which was within, a month, I think, of the games ending. And the Paralympics, let's not forget, didn't end until September 7th. So it was a very fast turnaround, and that's what we always do. I mean, we like to keep our facilities working. That's why we have all this equipment. We like to use it. And so it's a very tight, our production partners who manage those facilities work very closely with us, and we create really tight timelines. Sometimes I'm begging for just a little more time. And but yeah, it's tight. We do things very quickly around here.
People, again, nothing happens. No amount of emails move a box from this point, and no amount of emails, will move cables from this rack to this rack. For people who are just starting out in this industry, and they may not be. They may not want to be an engineer, but they may not want to be an operator. They find this beautiful middle of technicians and technologists. It's where I find myself. I'm a technologist. I love it. What do you have to say, or what career path would you give somebody who's not 100% sure if television or broadcasting is thing? What kind of advice or what kind of career path would one person take to now, Canada is at a loss. You're at a loss as a hiring opportunity because there's no broadcast colleges, or there's a reduced amount of broadcast colleges. What does the job force of the future look like for you, and how can the AES Toronto help?
I think we're seeing more and more the mesh of network and broadcast kind of mixing together. And so what we see a lot of is people with high skills with networking and computer skills, maybe not with those raw, engineering skills of the past. And that's okay. I think the key is finding some resources and colleagues and collaborating to learn from one another is so important. And the biggest important thing, if you want to go down the path of technology in any capacity, is patience and understanding and troubleshooting. If you want to go into the technological world, you have to be able to troubleshoot in a methodical way, and you have to be able to be patient with people as they try and explain their issues to you.
So you talk about people's issues, and in the iFixit department, are you are the iFixit department. Everybody that is working on your team is in the iFixit department. People skills, again, engineers, classic engineering skills do not include people skills. That's just like a common thing amongst engineers. What is it about that kind of, again, the work from home, the soft skills, aside from the hard skills, what can people do to go, to really, what's the challenge there?
It's, I'm the first one to go to my Google chat and send off a little something to someone when I need them. And there's so much lost context and when it's just text back and forth. So a call, an actual verbal conversation is key to understanding someone's emotional state, to understanding the intention of their words. And that, I think, is possibly something that was lost in the last year. But what was really gained was an attitude of we all are in the same situation. No one was outside of a situation. No one sat in a different
yes
level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the great equalizer is that we all had the same pandemic happening around us. I didn't have to ask you, hey, what's going on in your life? Oh, I got a pandemic going around. Oh, no, you don't have. No, I don't have that pandemic. No.
Yeah, no, that one didn't hit my area. I think, and it became a bit of a. If someone seemed extra stressed, there was more understanding. I don't know if you noticed that, but it just seemed like, we're all just a little stressed. And you know what? Life sometimes is the stressful thing. It doesn't have to be work. So,
speaking of which, those Patch Bay labels, they have been delivered and they're being installed right now.
Good to hear.
Well, anyway, but thanks for the tolerance and patience on that one. But we got them on air. And I guess the masking tape. That's the thing I'm going to miss most in the IP world is all the masking tape. Yeah,
there's a lot that's going to be missed in CER. Patch cables, masking tape, drawings hung on with magnets everywhere. It's going to be a new world for sure.
It's true.
Yeah.
Dana, thank you so very much for taking the time to chat with us. I learned a lot, and I work with you, and I see you, and I don't see enough of you, so this has been a fantastic opportunity to have a chat. Thank you.
Well, I'm back in the office. Happy to talk anytime.
All right. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Hi, it's Anthony. I'm back here. I guess I could give you a little bit of a tour of what's going on here. Well, yeah, of course, COVID has happened, and I'm going to stop the music or pause the music here. Can I stop? Uh-oh. Now I've done it. Way to go, Anthony. Always trying to make things better. So, again, the building is located directly underneath the CN Tower. Well, why is that important, or why does that matter? Well, because the CN Tower is this big, huge amplifier. Like it's a big power amplifier directly above the building. And why does the building have to be built the way it is? Because of that huge amount of power that's radiating from below, or from above. So the top of the building is actually, I think it's lead lined, the studios that are up above. I don't know if they have a overhead shot of what the studios look like, but there are 3 rooms up above, and they're lead lined, and they're big, 14,000 square foot rooms, and they, in the ceiling. Let's see if I can find a ceiling picture here. So in the ceiling, this is all lead lined, and these floors float. So this is all floating concrete. The walls internally float on a concrete, and there's a couple of big doors here, and I believe like this door here, this is a lead lined air sealed door, and I believe there are 2 of them that shut. I think it's just a one that shuts. But that's sound deadening as well as RF rejection. This big, huge elevator. I don't. If you ever get the chance to come over the building, it's an amazing thing to see. Just big, huge things go up and down this elevator, and then just directly into one of the 2 studios. Here they're talking about motorized grid, and that's what I was talking about before with the grid that has these motorized battens that come in and out for ease of aim, and you don't have to go on a ladder. Here, this is Studio 42. This is the studio made famous where I believe Kids in the Hall was filmed here, and I believe I think this is either I can't tell you what show. I think that looks like a Dragon's Den type of thing. The control rooms. So the control rooms, there's 2 control rooms that are part of the upstairs, and these were 2 big, huge control rooms that played a big part in everything we do. This is a resource position, so when there's multiple cameras, remote feeds, etc., that comes in here, and that plays out. Those decisions, those Skype calls, those Zoom calls get coordinated here. Producers, switcher that sits up here, video shader that sits over off to the side. Unfortunately, in this video, they don't show much audio, but everywhere you look, there's peripheral audio. And one of the common things you hear in a lot of these conversations is that, well, these key panels and these little speakers here, like, it's more about how many outputs it has than how many inputs it has. But speaking of inputs and outputs, one of the things, and I'm going to be stupidly honest with you, I didn't know there was such thing as an aux in video. And Daniel Pereira, he's like, you really are an audio guy. And I had no idea that a video aux existed. So you kind of go, okay, well, why do they need such a big video switcher? And it's for the auxes. And what are the auxes? Well, the screens that are behind people, the floors, the outputs that go and feed other things. Those are all video auxes, and they have to come off of this huge matrix that is a huge matrix switcher. Like they said, in order for COVID, they've really had to change the way the studios were built, so people could, work side by side during the pandemic. And like in the conversation I had with Catherine, there was no transmission. CBC was very, very overly protective of the people that were working with them, and they did some absolutely fantastic things. So please enjoy this conversation with Roberto Capretta. Let me fire it up here. Watch your ears in 3, 2.
Hello, Roberto.
Hello, Anthony.
Have I got you there? Looks like you're in the building right now.
Yes, I am.
You're in 40? Are you in 40?
42.
Oh, 42.
Yes,
Sorry.
42.
They the same console, so I didn't know, it looks the same, right? So, Roberto, thank you very much for joining us. I know you're a busy person today. You got stuff going on, obviously. So let's cut to the chase and let's talk about you. You're producer, recording engineer at CBC Studios. What's that all about?
I'm basically a senior mixer engineer for the television side here. So I do a variety of different things like Olympics, I've done Hockey Night. I did the federal debate, the election here.
Yeah. What are you working on today? What's going on today in the building?
I'm helping out with the Polaris Awards down in Studio 211. It's just live. Well, not as live. Everything's a little bit different these days, but there'll be like one performance later today for a live music awards, the new artists.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we can't give that away, right? It's an award show. We can't talk too much about that. But so in the recording side, Roberto, as a producer, you have somewhat of a live performance aspect to your mixing duties, because you also are heavily involved with decision making of music tracks. So how does the recording background you have lend to the mixing skills that you now use in some of these shows that you've got on your plate?
Years ago, I never thought it would have had this kind of effect, but it really does. My background, learning to do things in music, being able to layer and combine everything together, the principles of, certain things have to stand out, push out, other elements have to push to the background. That falls completely in the same realm, whether you're doing, when I was in post and I did a lot of effects editing, or a lot of effects on live sports. How you're trying to get something to jump through and into the background, pushing music underneath. You're still trying to orchestrate, if you will, and combine everything in an effective manner that meets production's goals of how they want the show to feel. That's kind of interesting. You just can't make everything louder.
Right.
No different than making everything louder in a band mix. You have to decide what that focus of the mix is going to be, and that really is quite apparent when you're mixing these kinds of shows too.
Well, the second to the the ambience, like there's almost like a dramatic element to the music that is in these productions. So where does this music come from? Does the production contract? Is this all unique music, or is this in-house, or how do they get this stuff?
Well, there's a variety of, sometimes, like say for the Olympics, there will be a composer that does the main overall theme, and there'll be different variations of that theme. But when you're live on the air, and we were basically 24 hours a day, you can't run the same cuts every 10 minutes. And then there's library music. A lot of ours is from APM that's selected. So sometimes production they'll select, here's our 100 bass cuts. It'll come to us, and we'll edit them for the start points. We might say, we want to make a loop here. And then as we're going in the Olympics, the production doesn't want to look for more cuts. So a lot of times I would just get on the library and look for things that I thought we were kind of missing. Like, I found that we had overused some of our dramatic elements. And so you're just looking for something else that would kind of work, depending on the stories that are coming along. And that is, what's happening in the Olympics, for example, story-wise. Is there something sad coming, or is it like basketball, which would require a different kind of music that would just seem like more in tune with that sport? Then you just go see if you can find it. First of all, it's not that easy to find, and then drop it in. And it's also good to just across 2 or 3 weeks to introduce new things bit by bit. What I would also do is that a lot of this music is 3-4 minutes, but we may only use 10 or 15 seconds. So a few days in, I'll just cue in and look for another endpoint that might work, etc.
So you're jumping around the music. You're doing a Beatles where you chop up the tape, you throw it up in the air, and you're like, pick a loop that works.
Yeah, so we don't sound the same. We can try to sound newer because we can't have 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
So we try to look for different things and look for things that kind of work and match where you're going to.
When you're bringing them back, are these,
so for example,
are these stereo clips, or are these surround clips that you're bringing in?
Actually, I found, even when I was in post, a lot of things that were composed for hockey, for Olympics, the 5.1 mix was usually an upmax version. It wasn't really true 5.1. So, and a lot of our library stuff is stereo. So we're upmaxing it. Our Apollos, a lot of our suites, but our Apollos have Waves, Mercury, and the DTS bundles. So we're using one of the upmax versions and moving it to 5.1.
Right. Well, and like you say, 5.1 is all of these consoles. You're not dealing like an input, like a fader is not mono anymore. It's a stereo thing, or it might be even a 5.1 fader. Like, tell us more about this thing that's behind you, and how it's changed the game from I don't want to say the old way of doing it, of like being at the venue with the console, but how is this, now that you're a remote venue, just a huge router, and for those 5.1, for those stereo things, for those intercom things, what is that all about?
Well, the Apollo, for those who don't know, is is very helpful for us. In the old days, we'd had multiple consoles around us. The CalRec Apollo's got about 1,100 inputs, several hundred outputs. We'll push it, but we haven't maxed out on Olympics yet. And when you have so many 5.1 sources, we have to mix between sources. So we might be at track and field, for example. We'll be killing the center channel and leaving the ambience up from track and field, then opening up another dialogue from the host or from somewhere else, and then crossfading the 5.1 ambiences at a different point in time. So you're not going to go from one fader to the second. You're mixing basically stems underneath and at different points of time. And then you're rolling music in and out and maybe different ambiences. So on a console with basically 2 layers of faders, it's very handy to visually organize yourself. So there's so many different ways of doing it. But how we've done this recently is that we would put on the lower faders basically all the ambience of that venue, and the upper smaller fader the dialogue from that venue. And so you can visually see I'm going to go from this I'm going to go from this venue, leave my ambience up, kill the audio, and then move over. And now you can visually keep track of what you're doing, because a lot of things happen very quickly, and you could get lost. Bring up the wrong ambience or the wrong announcers. You're not. There isn't a lot of time to check, so you have to trust your setup and go right to where you're going next and hit your levels.
Okay, so then maybe, I think maybe one of our other presenters will speak a little bit about this, but when you say venue, like you're not dealing with one venue at a time, you're dealing with multiple venues, and while you're on the air live with some venues, you're recording in post-production on other venues. There's parallel workflows. So during the Olympics, how many venues are in play at once? And is that for all of the broadcast, and it gets shuffled to post-production? Could you explain a little bit about how much television is being produced, I guess, simultaneously?
Sure. It's like, for example, on my screens, we'll put up about 18, up to like 17 or 18 venues at one point in time, and those venues will change during the day. But that's not all the venues in the Olympics. So we could have edit suites who are recording, say, for example, skateboarding is on. CBC on air, main air net is not going to show skateboarding till later, but we have an edit suite that's recording it, and they might be streaming it at the same time. And at that point in time, because of COVID, most of our voice announcers were here in booths in Studio 40. So all that stuff is passing through the console. 14 basically announce booths were in there, and that's passing through these consoles, their monitors, their mics, their talkbacks. And that's hitting edit suites, and from edit suites they might package something in post production, and we might see that as a package to be played back later in the day. But all events are streamed at the same time, and we might dip into and simulcast a stream here on the main net, and then go away from it. But streaming allows you to watch it all the time. So simultaneously, I can't even tell you we could be running well over 20, 30 events at the same time, depending. It just basically depends on what our capacity is for our stream, for our switches and our streams that are coming through.
So when the operator's sitting there, they have underneath them, I guess there's like running programs in the background, running mixes. There's pass-throughs. Are they pass-throughs that are happening while the mixer's mixing in a live-to-air show? It sounds so layered and complicated, Roberto. I'm just trying to dig it out, trying to pull it apart.
Well, OBS, so Olympic Broadcast System, they generate a mix for each venue that's in 5.1 or Atmos for those who take Atmos. We do not. And that comes to us, and then we embed our announcers, or sometimes we'll buy an OBS version of announcers. and that basically gets married in a central router. And then from there, the production people, they'll choose, we're broadcasting, A, B, and C. We're going to ignore D and E, but we'll stream D and E. So basically, all the events are happening at the same time, and we're just basically switching between what's on air, what's going in the background, what's going to post. We have to monitor, even though we may not be working on something, we're taking care of issues that might arise. I'll take skateboarding. I'm not doing skateboarding, but we have sub mixers who are sub mixing the voice over booths, who are creating a stream of the audio. That happens constantly, and we have to watch our network, our Dante network. Wonder if I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but basically,
it's good.
Yeah. So there's many different layers of happening. There's basically someone mixing voice booths of the shows that we are choosing to put announcers on.
Right.
And that happens underneath the Apollo, underneath your mix.
So it's pre-mixing. So it's a matter of teamwork. It's teamwork because so talk about just like if then maybe in my these pre-mixers, how many and just off the top of your head, pre-mixers were working in concert to make this happen?
Okay. We did basically 2 10-hour shifts, 2 CalRec Brios, which would be attached to our CalRec network, and they would be among the 14 booths. So the consoles were mirrored so that we would not have any sort of weird juggling thing happening. So basically, Brio 1 and Brio 2. Brio 1 would decide, Brio 1 would do booth 1, 4, 7, and 8 for these events, and Brio 2 would do 2, 6, 8, 9 or something. And it doesn't matter, and that would change. So there's prep time in the booth. Booths have to be clean before anybody goes into them. And we have to test them. They have to be in their booth an hour before the venue goes to check everything. And then our Brio mixers would communicate with us if their booths were on the air live, or they would communicate with the edit suites, because the edit suites would sometimes take control of those booths for streaming. And we would tell them, like, even basic things like, you're not on the air, please don't talk, because one of our biggest problems is having things go on the air that aren't supposed to, because there are no commercials in streaming.
Yeah,
but
there's also like there's you say there's conversations that have to happen, and maybe and we'll talk to Andrew a little bit about the conversations, so again, it's more about muting the things than it is bringing the things on the air. So you have a team that publishes that pushes these off, and you said edit suites are involved. So because of the Dante network, because of the Maddie network, like how do the edit suites get involved with the talking directly to the booths? They
talk directly through our intercom, and our intercom is really quite interconnected with the audio. So all of our intercom frames, like each studio has an intercom frame. The tape area, which is 2 floors below us, has its own intercom frame. Each of those frames have a Brooklyn 2 card. It's called an Omnio, and we're running Maddie. Where some paths are analog, but a lot of our communication for the Brios I was speaking to, that was basically all done on Dante, all the monitoring, and some of the talk back.
So it's a handoff. So it's a lot of handoff. This person kind of pre-mixes, pre-massage, handoff, pre-mix, pre-massage, handoff.
Yes. That's stuff that Andrew and I would have coordinated quite early on. We would decide, okay, to make this work, we're going to use Maddie for these paths,
right,
and Dante for these paths. And sometimes the decisions are because we have no more room on one path, and you got to figure another way to get there.
Well, and that comes up to the variety of things. Like, it sounds like a big mix of technologies and big routing. It doesn't sound like a lot of EQing and compressing, like the traditional thing people think mixing consoles are used for. That's a for sure thing.
Yeah. That happens at the very that happens more or less at the very end. There are problems on some of our feeds. There's problems with, announcers' mic position and stuff. And so there's a lot of corrective things that happen. So our Brios will comp and EQ everything because some of their work is going straight to air, just their dialogue. And we have to do that here. We'll have problems with, we had a lot of problems this past Olympics with some of the venues, and we had to do a lot of corrective EQ, et cetera. But yeah, it's basically the last stage. It's not necessarily the primary function of the console anymore.
So with that noise, let's talk a little bit about the Olympics and some of the, we'll call them the production decisions of how it sounded. This year was a unique challenge. Leave it to Tokyo to be the quietest Olympics of all time. This year, like a lot of people, and you're one of the producers on the, you gave it that. This was silence, Roberto. So what was unique and what were some of the unique things about Tokyo 2020/2021 in terms of dealing with those venues and the sound of this Olympics?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention something new that we did. We only had announcers at 2 venues this year. This is the least we've ever sent. And it was at swimming and at track and field. And one of the features on our CalRex is to basically do remote DSP, which we could control from here. So basically we dropped an RP1 is as you know, Anthony, we dropped one at each venue, and each RP1 has basically IO and a variety of IO, AS, Matty, Dante, and and then the announcers were basically connected to that box, and we could remote control their IFBs from here and the outputs. And we had basically 2 mixers here operating that DSP from touch screens. We can also operate them from the consoles, but our consoles were tied up, something that we are hoping to address later on. So that was completely new. Having everybody else here, we've never run 14 voiceover booths, but because of COVID and travel issues, this is what we had to do. So basically our control room, the directors, producers, execs, they were all here. I'm sure Andrew will tell you, we had to separate people in many different rooms. So we had to create a lot of other mini studios where other exec producers had to be and spread them all out. And of course, they all needed to monitor the 5.1. So we had to basically create multiple rooms that were control rooms, but with 5.1 monitoring so they could hear what was happening. And then communication between those people, not to cross into
the intercom. Oh, geez. Well, it sounds like a huge routing complexity. It sounds like a real-time performance of music and decision. You can't possibly think of all of the things, like it's live television. You got to make decisions on the fly. How does one train for that, Roberto? How do you become you, and how do you become comfortable with dealing with that type of complexity, and how do you build up to that type of complexity in terms of doing television production at this scale? What prepares somebody for this? And what prepares somebody for this?
Okay, I think the variety of different things I did really helped, coming originally from, a music background where I did everything from orchestral, jazz, opera, pop, jazz, then into television. I've done a lot of different sports. You start off at smaller venues, and you learn the venue, learn how to do hockey or how to do basketball. And I think my years in post really helped, because I think many things are very integrated. I did a lot of sound effects design, and I was sound design, and it taught me really well how to layer things together. And I think you just gradually scale up, working on larger projects. Simple hockey game. I did a lot of U.S. splits, and then the projects just kind of gradually get bigger. And I think to sit here, it's very useful to have done all the roles. I was once an assistant. I understand what's on the other side of the floor. When I can speak with editors because I used to be one, and the ability to communicate with different people in different parts of the jobs, I think makes a big difference. And then when you work with production a lot, learning to listen to production and what they want, so they don't have to ask for everything. So being able to anticipate what production is going to want. So the producer, for example, producer director for, well, there's several producers on the show, and they're all quite talented. But one in particular is one I did Hockey Night in Canada with, so the finals, etc. When you get to work with some people repeatedly, you can predict what they're going to want, and learning to pay attention to the content, where the content is going, and feeling the content and the story is really important, because then you can, you'll make choices that help the production, and without them having to call for absolutely everything they need. I think that's beneficial, because they can concentrate more on what they need to do. So whether it's comms and being able to make sure that they can communicate and get past their equipment, or if it's mixing, and the more that you can do to alleviate their work really helps you at this level.
I like how you said to help them get past their equipment, because they want to make television. Their job isn't to be an intercom specialist or a control panel wizard. Their job is to talk to that person at the push of a button. That's a tricky one. That's a very tricky one. This year, so I want to talk about a fourth dimensional problem you and I kind of talked about, which was, now that you have all of these feeds coming in at different times with different, remote packages and remote kits and stuff like that, what are some of the new techniques that you're having to deal with to make these things line up with rigidity and look like it's, cohesive in time and synchronization? What are some of the new challenges with graphics and remotes that have changed in the last little while for you in this fourth dimensional problem?
A lot of it is just timing synchronization. So on the Olympics, for example, I had something like 12 different master buses, each with a different delay, and you'd ask why. And when you see Scott Russell, our host, speaking to someone on a green screen in Tokyo, but it was virtual. It was done with a very heavily, it was like a virtual background. Well, that required a specific delay to time to the video, because obviously any video processing is going to create X amount of delay that audio must match. But there were so many different setups that they had, that different types of interviews, or past couple of years everyone will talk about Zoom and timing that. You have to basically build and match outputs to for that and delays. But when you do that, you can't delay your audio going to the other side, because then there'll be this gigantic pause before you hear an answer, kind of like the old satellite days. So you want to pass your audio pre that bus master, so that everyone can hear each other as fast as possible to reduce the delay. So now you're thinking your in-ear monitors, or your IFBs, we'll call it in TV, has to happen at a certain time that's different than what you're putting to air. And so you have to be careful where you're busing all your different outputs, depending on what you're doing with all these delays. That happens now regularly in baseball. In hockey, when you see player tracking, we see the names on top of each player. That delay, I did that on the All-Star game. In the middle of the game, they would flip to that player tracking, but that was I think a 14 frame delay. So basically, almost half a second. And now you're changing your tracking of your sound effects in your crowd by half a second.
Right.
And you're crossfading back and forth. And that's getting to GPIs and stuff. But yes, so you have to now be very conscious of all your paths. And this is beyond mixing. So, and you have to be organized in such a fashion that you can find things quickly if you have to change something or reroute something.
So
you
said
can't have, yeah.
Yeah, and so you're switching between things that are delayed to things that are happening in real time to things that are you're effectively you're like Einstein. You're changing relativity in real time, Roberto. Wow. Okay, so we
Yes,
right.
and then you hope it doesn't drift.
Yes,
So
and
that happens on Zoom calls, but hopefully not on this other stuff.
Okay, so we're bending space and time in audio across 12 mix buses. That's impressive. That's very incredible. That's actually very incredible. So graphics. Now that these graphics are driving the thing, I look at the Olympics and, there's elements that they fly in. You mentioned briefly GPI. That's not a common thing that people talk about. Could you talk about the importance of, video-driven audio and how that involves, those big consoles?
Yes. I'll give you. I first started using GPIs on stuff like auto resync because you can't keep track with following effects from one camera to another. You want your, the director will say camera 2, camera 3, and you might have mics associated with those cameras. But you can fire a GPI trigger, which would basically be something that opens your fader at that point in time. So the switcher will hit that camera. It fires an impulse that will basically open your fader, and there's a way to invert it to close it as well and basically open each one. And then you can actually assign a fade up time. So basically someone is controlling your console. I use it a lot for specific cameras, like on award shows. The reason why we use it is that you're doing so many different things, and if they're flying between 5 or 6 different cameras, or on the finals, I had 21 cameras on GPIs because there's entertainment cameras and things. And you want that would be your sole job, but you can't make that your sole job. So I would assign all those to a master bus and ride one fader while all those mics went up and down.
Well, and it's somebody else is making that decision, right? Like that decision is already being made electronically. So you're piggybacking on that GPI. So GPI is a general purpose input, right? And you're right. It's just like somebody touches a switch and your console goes, hey, somebody touched a switch.
Yeah. And I just assign it to a master bus. Sometimes I want that source, and other times I don't. Mm-hmm. And you want to ride that level. So I assign all the outputs, a bus for all those GPIs. Just say one fader, well, I just ride that fader. Yeah. And while they'll just fire away. By the way, on any of those sources, I also have a second repeated source if I want to open up that camera without the GPI. So now 2 instances of that camera, probably of that microphone, exist because you can't rely on this stuff. It doesn't always work the way you think it will. So you have to have a backup plan.
Well, and that's so. Speaking of backup plans, just briefly here, we got about a minute left. Roberto, you did the election. You did some stuff out in Gatineau. Did you have what else? What did you do for the Olympics this year, or the election this year? What was your role in the election this year?
Myself and someone from SRC, we did the federal debate. So, and we did it last time, leaders debate in Gatineau at the museum. So a big cavernous, open, echoey gymnasium would be polite. We brought we have a lot of cedars to deal with excessive fan noise, reverberance, and we insert those on all the microphones to try to get control of the sound a little bit, so it's not so echoey, and you don't hear people when they're arguing over each other, which apparently they do during debates. You want it to be as intelligible as possible. So we had that, and we use the new IP mobile. IP is a very big path, obviously, that we're pursuing here at CBC. There's been more IP in everything we did, but we used Dome's new IP mobile, and we ran like 22 external intercom panels, half on Arvon, half on Dante, switches everywhere. I think we ran one multi-cable for an area where we had, I think, 30 RF mics, 20 wireless intercom belt packs, a dozen wireless IPs, just so everything, a lot of it was on Dante, audio-wise, on a separate network than the Dante, like within the truck that was attached to the intercom.
Just
So
scale.
multiple network, multiple LANs.
Just scale. Just sounds like everything you do just scales up on a weekly basis. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, it seems to get a little bit more complicated. Nothing's gotten simpler.
Well, Roberto, thanks for your time. I appreciate you taking the time to visit it with us. So very much.
Oh, glad to be here. Hopefully, I didn't make it more cloudy than it needed to be.
Oh no. People, there's no clarity in this, but it's opportunity. I look at this as opportunity for people to learn from you as a mentor. Thank you, Roberto, for sharing so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Take care.
All right, good day. Yes, I'm at the office. I went out for a little bit, and yeah, I did put on a mask. There's no questions in the chat, and until then, unfortunately, actually, I can take this off so you can probably hear the difference. I can talk a little bit about some other things. I have a slide presentation that previously existed for another presentation I did, but I figured I'd fill the time because unfortunately one of our guests couldn't make it, and then we'll call it a night here. The CN Tower, there's 30 television station and FM transmitters, like 30 transmitters on that tower. And it provides a variety of UHF, VHF, FM, microwave, whole bunch of stuff is coming off of that antenna. And the CN Tower is right here, and the CBC facility is right here. So again, it's direct line of sight, huge, powerful. Here I found an overhead shot. So on top of the building. Like I say, this is 14,000 square feet, and it's 60-foot ceilings, and it floats, and it's lead lined. So the predecessors who designed and engineered this building really designed it for this type of broadcast application, and really have carried through with it. This is a control room, and this is a control room, and this is the atrium, and in those control rooms, there's, like I said, there's these consoles that are installed, and the consoles are they're a Calrec Apollo, and they're a double row mixing console, so your small faders and big faders can be assigned to do different things. And like Roberto was saying, all of these different triggers can be made programmatically between all of these other pieces of equipment, and multiple channels, hundreds, thousands of channels are aggregated in these huge systems. And of course, wireless microphones are aggregated with these systems, and they are deployed throughout our building. Downstairs, unfortunately, I couldn't get anyone to meet us up to talk about some of the radio productions. There's a whole other side of the CBC, the radio productions, the concert halls, the recording side of things. Here's some more of those battens. They're down lower, and they're dropped to the ground. To give you an idea of the RF isolation between the rooms, like so here's a microphone spectrum sweep of you go into a room, and this is the RF level of the microphones, and then you go outside of that big huge room and shut the doors, and this is the RF level. So you're talking about a physical minus 40 dB isolation from the exterior, and we generate RF on multiple different floors. So there is a coordination that has to be maintained to have those frequencies jam between all of these floors, and proximity is your friend and proximity is your enemy when it comes to coordinating these frequencies across the building. The building intercom is massive. Here, just an example is Saskatchewan. So this is the Saskatchewan intercom, and here's Regina, and here's Saskatoon. Then you get into all of the other regions that connect all of the other regions. Then you start looking at the spoken wheel of how the CBC intercom connects, and you realize that it is just this ginormous communication hub. Hold on, let me just enhance that one more, because every layer you go, there is a deeper layer of technology, and it's really quite beautiful. It's really quite majestic, and one of the things that makes it happen, as we all know, is the AES standards. And thanks again for the AES for, well, all the AES standards, XLRs, TRSs, DB25s, MADI, was said a bunch of times tonight. The AES standards are the types of technology that we are moving between room and room. Well, folks, there's no questions, so I might as well, wrap it up with the formalities. Again, my name is Anthony. It's been a privilege and an honor to again, create this presentation. I really enjoyed chatting with some of my colleagues, both professionally and personally, about some of these topics. I'm just in love with the topic of audio and absolutely so fascinated by the complexity and scale. Thank you, Swamp Songs. TorontoAES.org. We are audio engineers who want to know more. So this conversation and these recordings will be preserved for posterity on our YouTube channel, and hopefully you can come back, check it out anytime you want. The Toronto AES, we unite audio engineers socially, so hopefully in the next year we can have a couple more in-person meetings. With this conversation, with the other conversations we have, we aim to empower people of all ages. Again, please, tell your friends. Every Tuesday, every fourth Tuesday of the month is when we do it. Visit TorontoAES.org for information about our past meetings, Masters of Audio, our member showcase. View our past event, view our past recent presentations. Go to our YouTube channel for information about audio, some of our past presentations, stuff we've done this year, stuff we've posted in the past. Again, our executive, very involved, very happy, very excited to have so many people involved, so many people contributing. This stuff doesn't make itself. If you would like to join along, please, reach out to us and we'll be happy to have you. Again, without our sponsorship and continuing support of our community members such as Solotech, Gear Audio, Sonotechnique, Bell Media, YSL Pro, Electrosonics Canada, BRTB, Global USS, Adamson, Lawo, avshop.ca, and Q5X. If you aren't a member, please join, aes.com/join. Give the gift of membership. For the audio engineer who has absolutely everything, they could also use a lifetime membership to the Audio Engineering Society. If you would like to get involved, please reach out, Toronto AES at torontoaes.org. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate you being here. If you have any other questions, or please leave your comments below. Like and subscribe, click the bell. I guess that's what they say on the YouTube. Our next presentation, I will have to look that up. I didn't, stupid me, I didn't even look it up. I apologize, and I'll do better next time.